Welcome to another episode of Random Chess Person. That's me. Today I'm going to try to solve some more puzzles on chess.com, and we'll see how well that goes. Oh, this is not formatted correctly. Alright, that looks better. Let's take a look at this puzzle. The opponent has just pushed their h-pawn, which, as we know from most puzzles and the way puzzles are constructed, that is probably a mistake or a blunder of some kind. We're going to see if we can punish that mistake. Here, as always, I look for checks first. The most obvious check that I see is to move our queen to e4. Their king is, as of yet, uncastled. They've threatened our queen right here with this h-pawn move, so we kind of have to move the queen anyway. And if we're going to move it, all the other moves don't make sense. This one does nothing. Moving it here loses the queen to the pawn. Moving it here loses the queen to the queen. So it kind of makes sense to check. Unless there's a different or better move. And I don't see that there is one. However, what will the opponent do if we move queen to e4, checking? The king could move out of the way, which would lose castling rights, as we know. The queen could block that check, in which case we could trade and they would lose castling rights. Or the bishop could block that check. That's the other thing that I see. If we check here, I think if I were playing with the white pieces at this point, I think I would block that check with the bishop, just because it's the least amount of trouble for the opponent. It doesn't threaten a queen trade. It doesn't threaten to lose castling rights. It brings back a minor piece to block the queen check. And then what can the queen is just kind of stuck in the middle of the board. But just in case, let's look for anything else. We cannot currently castle because of the bishop guarding that d8 square. Not that we would want to castle with all these disrupted pawn structure on that side. We certainly wouldn't want to just make a random move like the bishop or the knight or something while our queen is in danger. So I'm going to start with the check. That was not it. Oh my, I'm having that kind of week, folks. First losing to the Martin bot, and then this. Alright, what was it? Was it just to move it here? Was that it? Let's check the analysis button. All right, well, Stockfish is going to take some time to decide what to do. Oh, wow. Incredible. Queen to e4 check was our third best move, according to Stockfish. Slightly better would have been to put it on f5. I really don't know what's so bad about e4, but we have a huge advantage if we capture this bishop now. And why wouldn't they take our queen? Because we would have this check, which they would just move out of. And then we would get their queen, but then they would get our rook. But first they would check us, and we would have to move out of check, probably by capturing that pawn, and then they would capture our rook. Okay, here we're a piece ahead. I don't know about all that. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, because we're even on material right now, it looks like. They've given up their e-pawn, we've given up our d-pawn, so maybe this arose from a Scandinavian defense at some point. I don't know. But, yeah, probably. But, so we're even on material. If we take this, we're up 3. Now they're up 6. Because -3 plus whatever. So they're up 6. Now they're still up 1. We take the queen. So that's 9. So now we're up 8. This is an even trade here, so it doesn't matter. Now we're up 3. And I was supposed to see all of that from back there? Yeah, I'm not, sorry, 5 minutes on that. I don't think I'm ever going to see all that from back there. I did see that, I didn't mention it, but like in my mind, I thought I could take that, and if they took me, I would get this rook, but a rook and a bishop for a queen. I guess I didn't see that I would also be getting their queen for that rook. All right, so I should have done this, and then this, and then this, and that would have been the end of the puzzle. All right, well, that puzzle, oh, the rating is hidden behind my top of my camera view. I don't know why that sometimes it shows up and sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, that's rated 21:19. And target time was 31 seconds. So, yeah. Well, let's click next and try to regain the rating that I lost. I was at 22:68 when we started this. Okay, we have a vulnerable king here. This king has already been chased out of its home square by checks at some point. And what can we do about that? What can we do about that? Well, you know what? This is crazy. I know that queen sacrifices seem to be the theme of puzzles lately, but I was just noticing if this knight were not here, this would be a really sweet spot to put my knight, because my bishop cuts off these squares from the king, and of course many other squares are cut off by his own pieces. And if I were to move my knight there, that would cut off this square as well with check, forcing the king back, and then that would be mate if that knight was not there. Okay, I had to try it. That was not the move. All right. It's going to be that kind of week, folks. Was it moving the knight here first? It was moving the knight here first. All right. And then here, which forces the king out. And I don't have a follow-up to that, do I? Or should I take the knight first with one of these pieces? Because that's not a check. That was it, but I can't go there because of the pawn. Can't go there because of the pawn. Oh, is that mate? Ah, dang it. Okay, let me take a moment here. I have just lost an unknown number of points. I've lost 28 points in 2 puzzles. Oh, I should have clicked analysis on that last one. I wanted to see if it wasn't mate what I was thinking of. They probably had some other piece they could move to get out of it. All right, here I am down a full piece, a minor piece. The opponent has an extra piece. And they can move that piece anywhere, for example, and I will be in check from their queen at that point. They can also check me at any point here and trade off the rook. But I'm about to promote with check. And when their king moves out of check... Wait, can their king not move out of... Is this a one-move mate? I was going to say when their king moves out of check, I would pick up the rook, but that might just be mate. With the queen here, cutting off those squares and these squares, and these cut off by both queens, protected by each other, and this queen cutting off these squares. I think if I promote now, it's just checkmate. All right. And that puzzle was rated 1900. A one-move pawn promotion checkmate. And the theme was made in 1. That is correct. Oh, I was supposed to have seen that in 9 seconds. Well, pardon me, sir. I did not see that in 9 seconds. Okay. I'm not going to see this one in 9 seconds either. Just tell you that right now. Yeah, I'm having one of those days. What if, well, I'm not going to check there because the knight is guarding that and the pawn is guarding that. Even though that's probably the right answer, the way these puzzles are going. That's not the right answer for the same reasons, right? They just take it back. I mean, I do have a whole nother piece, but that's not check. They don't have to take back. What else? What else? I could put a pawn there, but then they move the pawn up. But if they move the pawn up, I can take it. I'm probably gonna fail this one too. It's not even fun anymore. Just lost 13 more points. Was it the queen sacrifice? No. Was it this queen sacrifice? No. Was it the rook sacrifice? No. Was it the bishop sacrifice? It was the bishop sacrifice. It had to be one of those things. I mean, now the queen is there, right? But you know, all right. Don't even feel sorry for me. This is how some weeks go, and it's something that I have learned as I've gotten older, and I am getting older. It'll happen to you too one of these days. One of the things that I've learned as I've gotten older is that good times come and go, and so do bad times, and that includes your own decision-making abilities. Sometimes you make better decisions than others, and sometimes you make poor decisions and things don't go well. And you just have to learn to roll with it because it'll turn around tomorrow. All right. In this position, we have two bishops that are facing each other. We have something going on over here. I'm not sure what those pieces are doing exactly. I also noticed that the pawn is hitting the bishop, but that's not good, right? We don't have any checks in this position. Not a one. But we can do this, right? I don't know what does that even do? They're just going to take the bishop. Right? No. Well, they would take with check. When I took back, then they would move their queen. So that's not good. But maybe that's good as a second move. If I take this now, like, what are they going to do about that? Because if they take back, I still have the knight move. But they're not. But that. Oh, that was it. And they did take back because they thought this pawn was bent. Okay. Well, that was rated 1819. It's given me easier and easier puzzles because I've had some trouble. And I'm still 31 points lower than I started this video. And feeling a little saucy, so I'm just going to keep going. The king has just moved out of check. All right, that's what happened here. Oh, and my queen is hanging. That's very nice. And that piece is guarded by the knight. This is all very complicated. I'm also attacking this bishop with 2 pieces, and I've pinned that knight to this bishop. These are the kind of positions I do really poorly at. And I try not to get into these positions in actual games, just because of this very thing, the calculation involved. Part of the calculation involved is not being able to predict what the opponent will do next, especially when there are multiple choices. Here, this actually might be a little easier because I can force what the opponent will do next if I take here. That way I do know what the opponent will do next, which is they are forced to capture with the pawn, because they can't move the king out of check again because the bishop is still hitting the f8 square. So that move forces a response, and it has to be that. Pretty sure that's the only thing they can do is take back with the g-pawn. But that removes one of my attackers on this square, which this knight. But if, for example, I were to do something like this, then this knight's not guarded, right? This knight's sitting here not guarded at all. So if I were to do this, they could take this knight first and then be threatening here and this at the same time, because this bishop's unguarded as well. So this makes me think I should first take the knight. They will take back with this pawn. Then I will take this bishop. And if they capture back with the knight, I will take that bishop. And when they capture that back, I will take their knight here. That's what I've calculated, and as we've seen from earlier moments in this exact video that you're watching now, that's probably not correct. Oh, that was correct. All right. Well, all that stuff I said over here, what if instead I just checkmated? Because, yeah, I could do this, but I'm sure that's wrong with this check here, because I think the only out that they have is to block with the bishop, which I will then capture. I got one. All right, well, 3. I've gotten 3 out of 6 in this video so far, but my score is 26 points lower than where I began. All right. This one does not have a theme, but it is rated 1960. I'm going to say the theme was made in 3, just because I think these puzzles should have themes. That makes it easier when you want to focus on a specific type of puzzle. Next, we have an endgame. I think most of us would be tempted to just try to push this pawn because we're going to win the race. Right? 1, 1, 2, 2, queen, queen, but their queen comes with check. Makes me wonder if I shouldn't move my king first to prevent their pawn from promoting. Would that allow them to catch my pawn? No, it would not. Yes, it would. Oh, wow. If I move my king to stop their pawn, then they can catch mine. Look at that. And if I promote, they capture it. Okay, well, that's why we can calculate. And we can calculate this without arrows. That's one thing I need to work on, because when you're in a game, well, online you can draw the arrows, but on the board you can't. Not in the boards I've played with. So, if we move our pawn, it's almost certain that they would move theirs. Can we give them a move of the pawn and still catch it with ours? Now, I have a video about the pawn square, and that's where you draw a diagonal from your pawn to the end, slanting toward the opponent's king, to see where the square is. And in this case, the square is this area, the square of the pawn. And the idea of that is that way you don't have to necessarily count moves like I just did with the arrow. You can see that diagonal in your mind and therefore draw this square from b5 to e5 and b8 to e8. Wait, did I do this whole thing wrong? Are my pawns going the wrong direction? No, okay. For a second I thought, wait, what if my pawn's going this way? But I have the letters on the screen. Okay, so anyway, back to the square of the pawn. The idea is, if their king, if it's their turn, can they get inside that square? Well, right now they can't, because our king is here, and our king is blocking off that square. They can't get into it. They can go here, though. So they can enter the square of the pawn on their next turn. But if we move our pawn first, that changes the square. Now the square of the pawn is right here. And they can't get into it. But we can get into the square of their pawn, because right now it's here. Okay, so I think it is a pawn move first. It's not the full race, because as we said, when they queen, they're going to be queening with check. But if we move our pawn first, their king won't be able to get into the square, because remember, the square is going to be right here now, and they'll be a move too late. And if we move our pawn and they move their pawn, then we can get into their square. And we can beat their pawn down. And then even if they run, they're not fast enough. So it's got to be the pawn move. Okay, now we go toward their pawn. Because they've just made their square smaller. It's right here right now. And if we give them another move, we can't get there. We have to come in here now. And they can't catch ours, but we can catch theirs, just because of where our kings were. Our king was in one of the center squares, so we were equally close to both sides, I guess is what I'm saying. It has to be this, because that way we catch their pawn. They can't catch our pawn. Okay, well, again, just a matter of counting and calculation and knowing some of the endgame rules. But that one was rated 2175. So we're still at 22 minutes. Why not keep going, see if I can make up the other 21 points that I was missing. Okay. Their king has just moved out of check, which it had to do. It could not have moved here because of our bishop. It could not have moved here because of our knight. But that move was a blunder. We know this from the way that all puzzles begin, that it probably should have gone here. So, what is the answer then? There's a lot going on here. Our knight is hanging. Their bishop is hanging. But I don't know that we have. Do we have a follow-up check here? We do. What happens if we check with the bishop on d7? No, d6. Sorry. Bishop check on d6. The king will not be able to come back because our queen is cutting off that square. The king will not be able to come here because of the bishop. And, of course, the knight is still guarding that square. And, of course, the bishop is hitting that square. And our knight is guarding that square. So that would leave the king two choices. H1 or G2. And I think if it went to H1, that would... Sorry, I'm running out of colors here. If we first... checked here on d6, and if the king went to h1, we could follow up check with the queen, and if the knight blocked, we would just take it because our bishop is guarding that square, and that would be mate. Would that be the same thing if it went here? See, if it went there, that doesn't work because there's nothing protecting this check. But in that case, couldn't we follow here? Right? first this move, and if the king went to g2, we would check on g4, which would force, then it would force the king back. If it went back, we would mate down here, and if it went back that way, we would do the original plan. So I'm going to try that. Totally did not see that that was a possibility. All right. Okay. And now, because we've moved our bishop there, this pawn is hanging. We can take their bishop. We can take their knight. One of two ways. The knight is still hanging. Hang in there with me. Lots of choices here. I suggest taking the knight with one of these pieces, but which one? Which one? If we take with the knight, don't they just take back? No, they don't take back with the pawn immediately. They would take this first, I think. Not only would that give their king more running room, possibly, but it would also be hitting that knight. I think. Maybe. But what if they did take back with the pawn? Oh, then we would go ahead with our original plan? But what if they didn't take back with the pawn? Does this queen then take this one? Oh, then we could hit the bishop if they didn't take back. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. Right, because if they don't take back, we take the bishop. They did take back. Okay, now I think it seems obvious that we go ahead with our original plan. Okay. 2252, which I reached like 3 puzzles ago. And so I'm still 16 points lower than where I started this puzzle. The theme of this puzzle was pin. I don't know about that, but next. Okay. The opponent's queen has just gone there for unknown reasons. Now, I notice this king is in a sort of a precarious position, with our rook cutting off the squares behind it, and our queen wanting to come in here if it could. That knight can't move right now because of this pin. And this queen can't come to help because it just hid itself behind its own bishop. It makes me think we should check with this knight. Because I think that would force them to take with this pawn. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. But if they did take with the pawn, because we're going to consider, we know they can't take with the knight because the knight's pinned, right? So if we check on h5, if they take with the pawn, we bring our queen over to g5, and that's checkmate. Because remember, the king can't go backward because of our rook, and it wouldn't be able to come forward because of our queen. If it did not take with the pawn, and the king moved here, would we just take the knight then for free at that point? Okay, it did move there. Okay, well, I knew what would happen if it took. We would have mate in one, but it went here instead. Now it currently, our knight is protected by the queen, but if we took the knight, their knight with our queen, then they would take our knight. It makes sense to me that we would take their knight. Doesn't it? Doesn't that make more sense? Is that the whole puzzle, that we just take their knight now? Or is there something else? Is there something else? Because if we check here, they take, right? Yeah, if we check again, they take. If we take their knight with our queen, they take. I think. I'm going to take their knight with our knight. Oh, there was more. There's more. We're in check. And our queen is hanging. Well, that's unfortunate. I'm not worried about our queen. Because when they take our queen, we're going to do this. And we're going to win their queen back. So I think here we should just take the bishop. Because I have this. All right. I only have 9 points left to go. Do you think we can do it? What, 5 in a row? I'm pushing the odds now. That puzzle didn't have a theme, but it was rated 2267. Maybe I just wasn't awake for those first few that I missed. That looks tasty, but they can just block. But if they block, if I check on e8, not they can block, they have to block. That's their only legal move at that point. Then, pretty sure I can put my queen right there on h6, and their bishop will be pinned by my rook, and I don't think that they'll be able to stop mate. Let's try that. Or should we look for anything else first? Let's look for other things first. What do they have? Do they have anything about to mate us? Because that second move of ours is not going to be check. They can check us, but they cannot checkmate us at that point. Remember, our queen would be over here, so we would just take it. And I don't think they have any other checks. So I'm going to try that. That was it. And now this looks like the best follow-up move, doesn't it? Putting our queen on h6, threatening checkmate. There. That would be our next move. Can they stop our next move? So we play queen to h6, not check. They can threaten our rook at that point. But it would be too late, because that would be checkmate. And again, with our queen here, they could check us, but we could take it with the queen for that matter. I mean, with our king, and still be threatening mate up here. I don't see anything better. They can protect against mate. Well, then what's the answer? Is the answer just to take the queen? Oh no, our queen's hanging if we do that. Well, then I wouldn't have moved that if I had seen that their queen could go here. Yeah, I wouldn't have done that if I had seen that their queen could go there. But their bishop is still pinned. It just won't be pinned if we take their queen now. Okay. I really want those 9 points back. Yeah, if they take. Right? What else is there here? And if I don't, they're going to take me. My rook's hanging. Can I guard it? I can guard it. But I think they could just do this. No, because then I would take. And if they took, I would have mate again. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's bishop to b5 to guard the rook from the queen. Because again, if I don't move the rook right now, they're going to get it. And if I move it to take their queen, they're going to get my queen. And right now we're even on material, but after that trade, we would not be even on material. So I'm going to try bishop to b5. Because this check doesn't make sense, does it? No, it does not. No, it doesn't. I was going to say that there would be a follow-up once the king took. I could check here, but boom. So it's got to be the bishop to b5, right? No. Oh. Okay, what was it? What was it? Was it taking their queen? No, of course not, because then they would take mine. Was it taking here? Of course not, because then they would take mine. Was it taking here? No, of course not, because then they would take... What in the world? It was moving the knight here now, so they would just then take my rook. Oh, because I'm threatening mate in a whole new place. Well, I don't have to go to the analysis board. I see what that does. It threatens mate over here that they cannot stop. So even if they had taken my rook, I would have had mate right there. Okay. Well, and we lost some more points for that, but only one. I think I must have only lost 1 or 2 points for that. Or 3, something. Okay. Now I'm 13 points behind where I started this video. Okay. There's something involved with here. King takes back. Check over on b4. King can't come over because of my rook. It has to go back, and then I have mate on the back rank. Pretty sure. Okay. Oh, I got that just a little faster than normal, so 7 points for that. Okay. Oh, now I'm only 6 points behind. What do I have? What do I have? I am down a piece. My opponent has a whole entire extra piece, but I have a passed pawn. Could that have something to do with it? And that passed pawn currently protects this square, like so. So that could be a good check to start with here. I'm not currently in check, but I'm about to be. Pretty sure my opponent is strongly considering that move, given where their knight is, that they are working on that. So once I check here, their only legal move would be to go back 1, and then I could check again. Right? They can't block this check because these squares are right next to each other. And my queen from there would be cutting off all of these, leaving them only one legal move, which is there. And then my bishop to here would be mate. Oh, it was just a one mover. Oh, and now I'm just... Well, the math is bad, but I'm pretty sure I started off at 2268. If I can get one more puzzle in this video, I will have regained my losses. Recouped my losses. Okay. They've blocked this check with the knight, which seemed like a good idea at the time because the queen is guarding that knight, and I'm not going to charge through there. Probably their better bet would have been to block that check with their bishop. That's what I'm thinking. Because here... Well, not only can I take with my queen, and if they take back, I'm up a knight. Well, right now on the board, I'm down 2 bishops. But I'm saying from that total, if I took here and they took, and I took back, I would have gained a knight, and then I would only be down one piece instead of 2. And if they took here, I would take, but then they would take the pawn. That would get very complicated. However, I can take the knight with the rook. That's why they should have blocked check with the bishop, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what I would have done. The knight was safe over here, guarded by both the rook and the queen. It could have just stayed there. And this bishop could have blocked the check, and it would have been directly threatening my queen. But I think here we can take with the rook, which directly threatens their queen. And when we move our rook, anywhere, they're going to be in check. We can also check them here, but then they just take that, right? I think they would just take that. So I think we take the knight with our rook. It's not a check, but it threatens the queen, and again, anywhere it moves would threaten check. Where would the queen move, though? That's the question. Where would the queen move? Well, it wouldn't move there because we would take it with check. It wouldn't move there because we would move our rook over with check. I don't think it would go here, here, or here because we would just take it. Pawn takes there, queen would take here, pawn would take there. It wouldn't move here because of our pawn. It wouldn't move here because... Well, because remember, our rook is here. If the queen went there, our knight could take it. Or for that matter, we would just move our rook up and that would be mate. That's what I thought. Okay, but that's the defense they should have done in the first place. Okay, well, if we take their queen, they take our queen. And remember, I said we were down the 2 bishops. Now we're only down 1 bishop because we just took this knight. Can we check somehow right now? We can check with our knight. And they could get out. Say if they took it, that would work out well for us because... Would it work out well for us? I don't know. Okay. So their bishop now is threatening our rook. And if we move our rook anywhere, like for example taking the queen, they're threatening to take our queen. But let's follow that through. We take their queen and they take ours. Then we take their rook and they take ours. No. We take their queen, they take our queen, then we check. And when they move out of check, we take the bishop, and we're guarding our rook. Please be right. Was right. Right? You see what I'm saying, right? Check. They have to move out of check, and their only legal move would be there, which blocks their bishop from hitting our rook. Then we take their bishop and protect our rook. No. But the check has to be it. The check has to be it. Unless, is there something better? Because if we take the rook now and they take back, then that's not a fork anymore. If we move the rook... Well, if we move the rook anywhere to the right, it's going to get captured. If we move it here, it's going to be captured. If we move it here, it's going to be captured, and so on. If we leave it there without checking, it's going to be captured. So, like, that challenges the bishop, but we're still down a minor piece. If I move here, they move out of check. And I capture the bishop, which protects the rook. They would then take it. And if I took back, they would take it. And they would still be up a minor piece. There's got to be something else. Check. They move out of check. Do I move a pawn up at that point? Oh my. This puzzle, it went on a little longer than I thought it was going to. But I don't see a way to get out of this without, I mean, because again, if I capture, they capture. If I check here, they just take it, and then my rook is hanging, and I've lost another minor piece. If I do this now, they just take with the bishop. I need the king to be here to be blocking the bishop from seeing my rook. And then I don't know if I take the bishop or move the rook. But yeah, I've got to check now. Oh, it's still going. Wait, okay, remember when I said that if I take the bishop, they take my rook, and if I take the rook, they take my knight, and they're still up a minor piece? Okay, now here, if I take their rook, and they take it back, I take their bishop, and we both have minor pieces left, as well as our rooks. And I was down 2 minor pieces at the beginning of this. So maybe taking their rook right now was the answer, rather than taking... If I take the bishop, they take this. Holy cow. Oh, I did it. Okay. 2272. You saw that? I had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got 9 puzzles and missed 4. And I ended up 4 points ahead of where I started. Well, if you stuck with me this whole video, I sure appreciate it. I am struggling a little bit lately, but I knew I needed to do some more puzzles. And as you've seen, I've been working my way through some of the weaker bots. Kind of at that plateau point where I'm wondering if this is something I want to keep doing. But anyway, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching.